Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to another Quran study today. Inshallah, God will be reading from Surah 22, starting at verse 52. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, verse 52, subtitled The System, and it has a footnote attached to it. So it says, "We did not send before you any messenger nor a prophet without having the devil interfere in his wishes. God then nullifies what the devil has done. God perfects his revelations. God is omnipotent. We have a footnote. Worldly tests, Satan is allowed to present his point of view. We are born with a representative of Satan in our bodies. This allows the people to make a choice between God's evidence and Satan's evidence. Satan's evidence is invariably based on lies. This system explains the fact that the devil's agents can be. We can see the subsequent related surahs and verses. That's Surah 6, verse 33 to 34. Surah 8, verse 30, Surah 17, verse 76 to 77, and again in Surah 27, verse 70. So, yeah, this is a really important verse because this constitutes, it entails for the human being to be tested. So, I mean, if you, it's the system. Think of it like that. It has to be done because this is one of the ways, for people to get exposed as a believer or a disbeliever, right? But we do see that God will nullify what the devil has done, and God perfects His revelation. So, I mean, so at the time of the messenger, I mean, a good example is, there's plenty of examples, but there's a lot of interference. I mean, with all the messengers and prophets that come with the miracles and or come with new revelations or even existing revelations and come to confirm or expound upon it. The devil's going to interfere with this, so it's not just going to be some walk in the park where everybody will just see the message and the information being displayed and readily accepted. It's not going to be that easy. And also, I mean, as we see in the footnote, throughout this worldly test, so Satan is allowed to present his point of view. So our companion is going to be arguing with us or debating with us and talking with us upon this new information, right? For in our day and age, we have the miracle. So this is something that a lot of opposition has risen, tried to rise up against it, and it only serves to expose the hardcore rebels and distinguish those people from the actual believers. Um, so I mean, this is the system, you know. So moving on to verse 53, the hypocrites drop out. He thus sets up the devil's scheme as a test for those who harbor doubts in their hearts and those whose hearts are hardened. The wicked must remain with the opposition. So yeah, this ties in directly. Basically, it ties into the previous verse about the devil's scheme. Interfering with wishes of the prophets and the messengers, or I mean, just in general, whatever the devil's scheme is, it's a test for the hypocrites, or people who harbor doubts in their hearts and or whose hearts have been hardened against God's message. So this we see here the wicked must remain with the opposition. So God knows the wicked souls, and so these things are set up. The devil's schemes are allowed and permitted and set up upon this earth in order for people to be sifted. So what it means, by the hypocrites dropping out, it's in the same sense where if somebody decides to they get the message or they get proofs or something and they decide to just throw their hands up in the air and be like, no, I don't accept it, I'm done, and they walk away. So it's not like a literal dropout. Like, I mean, it's just think of like a high school, or you drop out from school, you drop out from class. It doesn't mean you always have to leave either. I mean, you could have people that leave a congregation or something, or like a church, and it doesn't mean that they're hypocrites. Like they're leaving a place of, or they've been kicked out. I mean, it could go either way. But inevitably, this the devil scheme is set up as a test for these people who harbor doubts, because these doubts have to be brought to light, and so this is just part of the system. And another thing is like the hypocrites, they belong with each other. Some verses mix with these people. So those there's going to be tests, right? For all of us, and the hypocrites obviously are going to be the ones that fail those tests and continue in that way. And as we see here, this is part of the devil's scheme. So I mean, there's going to be situations that, for what's really, those who are blessed with knowledge will recognize the truth from your Lord and believe in it, and their hearts will readily accept it. Most assuredly, God guides the believers in the right path. As for those who disbelieve, they will continue to harbor doubts until the hour comes to them suddenly, or until the retribution of a terrible day comes to them. So, subhanAllah, God, we can see here that the word is used as blessed. Alhamdulillah, it's really a blessing, because I mean, it doesn't say those who are given knowledge will recognize the truth from your Lord, then believe in it. And it says blessed, because this is a truly, it's like the blessing of all, right? Because we have the truth and we have the miracle, as well as the past miracles, because it's confirmed as if it actually happened before our eyes, that are given to this generation. So God blesses us with that knowledge to recognize this truth and then believe in it, and their hearts will readily accept it. And it's I think it's I want to point out too, the hearts will readily accept it. So it's not just something where you accept it because you feel like you have to, or like, oh, God alone. Okay, I'm just gonna accept it because the Quran tells me to, and all that. Look, like, okay, that's good, but I think it should, for a believer with sincerity, that should actually be the preferred. Like, naturally, you should just prefer. I mean, once you come to the guidance, that's something you should prefer, and not, think, God alone is something that you should readily prefer, and it should just be instinctively happy, instead of just feel like you're having to believe in God alone and discard the idols, whether you whatever background or religion you come from. Like, it has to be in that, because that it shows more sincerity. It's not just, you're not just accepting it because I guess it just reminds me of, like, because there's people who submit, but because they're out of what's the verse that says everything glorifies God in the heavens and the earth. And so, we know the disbeliever, everything in his body's, I mean, his heart is submitting. So he's a submitter in that sense, but it's unwillfully. It's he's only it's not coming from the heart. It's not coming because he wants to, and that's, I mean, that ties in, I guess, to our reason behind being here, is the test of free will, and whether we use our free will, freedom of choice to worship God alone, or set up idols. And as for those who disbelieve, they will continue to harbor doubts until the hour comes to them suddenly, or until the retribution of a terrible day comes to them. So we can see here, that the hour, the day of resurrection, that comes to disbelievers suddenly. So it's not, that's we see this throughout the Quran, and it also says, or until the retribution of a terrible day comes to them. So I guess that last part, I guess the retribution of a terrible day could refer to maybe their last day on earth, like if they're a wicked community or something, that they're wiped out, like with an earthquake, or I mean, they could just be an individual, that by God's leave is annihilated during war or something, for being a disbeliever. That would be a terrible day for them, right? Because then they're going to face the hellfire right after. Or I mean, maybe we could talk about that after. It could just mean the same thing as it said before. But I mean, either case, it's retribution in this world. Because remember, the disbelievers will experience retribution in this world as well as the hereafter. I mean, such was the case with Pharaoh. I think in verse 67, God commits him to the retribution of the hereafter as well as the first life. So. And I mean, same with the opposite with the believer. After you pass your admission test, and you enter, and you within God's kingdom, your happiness, your blessing can start here, and continue on in your happiness. Um, so, verse 56, Satan's temporary kingship. All sovereignty on that day belongs to God, and he will judge among them. As for those who believe and lead a righteous life, they have deserved gardens of bliss, while those who disbelieved and rejected our revelations have incurred a shameful retribution. So this is, as we know, this is on that day. All sovereignty belongs to God, and He's going to judge among every single human being, every single jinn. And as for those who believe and lead a righteous life, they're going to get the great reward. And I mean, of course, it's not why we do it. We do it for God, and for just, I mean, out of appreciation and thanks, that just out of His mercy, and being appreciating our Creator's greatness, and infinite uh, mercy, that we're given this precious chance. I mean, that alone is something to be so thankful for, that we weren't sent to the hellfire. I mean, as the angel suggested in the first in the great feud, after we didn't take a firm side, standing with God. So I mean, there's just a lot of um, reasons to be thanking God. And I mean, as we see in the next verse, the ones who we see the fate of those who disbelieve, and we see the fate of the rejectors. It's going to be nothing but misery, and it's a shameful retribution. So I mean, these words like shame. I mean, imagine, like, something on earth that's very shameful, or you're embarrassed for whatever reason, or it's the amount of shame is going to be, I mean, astronomically, probably incomprehensible to the human mind. I mean, until that day. So it's just not only going to be painful, it's going to be just debasing, it's going to be shameful. So, and we see this is the fate with most people, because I mean, as you see, most people. I mean, even the people who believe, but they're idol worshippers, and I mean, in a sense, they're still rejecting God's revelations, because when you tell them God alone and not Muhammad, they they're they fall into that category of disbelievers, because they disbelieve, they fail the test, they miss the mark as to why we're here. Striving in the cause of God, this is verse 58. Those who immigrate for the sake of God and get killed or die, God will surely shower them with good provisions. God is certainly the best provider. Most assuredly, he will admit them in admittance that will please them. God is omniscient, clement. So, subhanAllah, God is the best provider. He is the one who, he runs everything, So, whether you kill or get died, all of that is in accordance with God's will. And that's something we should, today we don't, fighting isn't decreed, or like the world we live in today is different. So but I mean, even if it wasn't, we should still readily be willing, or even now, if it had come to that, for some, if like the socioeconomics or something changed, which I don't see it will, but even if it did, God knows what's in our hearts, and we should still willingly do that, like happily, because I mean, if you really believe in the hereafter, you're not gonna uh, um, lust after the materials of this world. This is temporary, right? And so you're going to forsake this world in favor of the hereafter, and in favor of working in God's causes. And I mean, we see this is, he admits his the believers and the servants to the paradise. So this is the best thing to attain, is God's mercy and forgiveness on that day. And I mean, stuff like this also, it gets written down as a credit, So this is hence. Sorry about the popping up of the. I can't. Something I just can't control. When I'm moving the screen, it's popping. But anyway, it's okay. But we see the title here, "Striving in the Cause of God." It's just striving, so it's not just like doing your prayers and giving charity and stuff. I mean, which is good. That's part of the pillars. And but this life is so precious, in the sense where it's you may be here to 50 to 70 year, or 100 years, whatever, 80, whatever the case may be. And so in comparison to forever, it only makes sense to do as much as possible in whatever ways you can. Everybody can. Um, you know, God will help you in that, in striving. So, verse 60: divine help for the oppressed. It is decreed that if one avenges an injustice that was inflicted upon him equitably, then is persecuted because of this, God will surely support him. God is pardoner, forgiving. So we see that oppressed people have been oppressed. They'll be helped by God, and especially if somebody stands up for the rights and avenges an injustice, that's perfectly fine. If in fact, if you don't, I mean, what does that what does that tell about you? Like, if you just are some pushover and no, you have to stand up for your rights equitably. And if people try to persecute you because of this, God will be your supporter, and God is he's the best supporter, and he also is pardoner and forgiver. God's omnipotence. 61. It is a fact that God merges the night into the day and merges the day into the night, and that God is hearer, seer. It is a fact that God is the truth, while setting up of any idols beside him constitutes a falsehood, and that God is most high, the supreme. Do you not see that God sends down from the sky water that turns the land green? God is sublime, cognizant. To him belongs everything in the heavens and the earth, and everything on earth. Absolutely, God is the most rich, most praiseworthy. So God be glorified. We see some of his attributes, and just we can see things these are things we can witness every day, like the merging of the night into the day, and then the day into the night. I mean, that those are proofs for people to believe. Like those are signs of our Creator, and this is another. Uh, it's talked about like this in the Quran. Because it's just reminding the reverent, and it's also there for those just really reminding everybody. But the reverent will take heed, and the wicked will avoid it. So I mean, you have a lot of people. Most people today, they uh, they could look up and they could see some stars, or just see a sunset or a sunrise, the merging of the night and the day, and they don't really give any thought to it. They just blunder, and it's really sad because if they just take these things for granted. I mean, if you think about all the systems and the physics and the laws and just everything that's going on to make this happen. I mean, it should really marvel and so this God is the truth, and that setting up any idols beside Him constitutes falsehood. So I mean, even if I mean, a human that's just a body and a soul, whether it's a prophet or a messenger or whatnot. I mean, they can't. There's no way on earth ever that they could sit here and raise the sun and move the sun around, or move the moon around the earth and move the earth. Like they wouldn't even do that. So it's really the stupidity of false idol worship. And I mean, I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but it's really the unintelligent. But that the foolishness of idol worship on the day of judgment will be just shown to these people, because it's literally someone so powerless, someone so small that they're literally ranking with our Creator. But most people don't see it that way, and so, and this is I mean, the devil's system. This is a scheme to set uh, to promote his point of view to people. And so people, and this is I mean, this is what all of us got ourselves into in the beginning, is wanting to go through this gruesome test, and given the freedom of choice. And you see a lot of people are failing, but I mean, as it's said in the Quran, it's our job to not convince these people, because there's verses that say you shall remind, for the reminder benefits, but if they turn away, then your sole mission is to deliver this message. I mean, that was the message to the prophets and messengers, and I mean also those who the submitters. That's what's our responsibility is, and because everything is God is in control of. So whether people choose to believe or disbelieve, that's all in accordance with God's will. Do you not see that God has committed in your service everything on earth? The ships run in the ocean by His command. He prevents the heavenly bodies from crashing onto the earth, except in accordance with His command. God is most kind towards the people, most merciful. Subhanallah. So there's all kind of asteroids and meteorites, or comets. I think the terms are not, they're all represent the same heavenly body, but I think I forget exactly, but once it enters the atmosphere, I think it becomes I don't know if it becomes, I'd have to look that up, but it becomes one, either an asteroid, meteorite, or comet. But I mean, there's all kind of those heavenly bodies floating out there, and He prevents this stuff from just completely wiping out. Or people go throughout daily life. I mean, their daily life, and if they just think about this, they can use this as an excuse to be grateful. Because I mean, imagine if it's all kind of like rocks or just started hitting the earth. Their day-to-day life they would be imploring God, but we see God is most kind towards the people, most merciful, and He's committed these things to running our service. The ships run in the ocean by His command. The winds, He's committed the winds to distribute, um, The winds carry, pollen and these other, help the plants reproduce, as well as run the ship. So I mean, the system is immaculate, and it's and may God help us to, think about these things more often, and to ponder upon them, and to turn, remember, use these things. When we feel the wind blow, it could be kind of a hot day or something. You could thank God, that you just get this little cool breeze, because I mean, it's just little ways for us to nourish our soul. Verse 66: He is the one who granted you life and puts you to death. Then he brings you back to life. Surely the human being is unappreciative. Excuse me, sorry. So yeah, he's the only one who can give us life, and he's the only one that can put us to death. The saints, the prophets, the idols that people set up, they can't do this, And if they do something like that, it's not even them, it's God. Jesus raised the dead, we know that, but that was strictly by God's leave, um, right? So I mean, God's the only one that can do anything, And I mean, surely the human being is unappreciative. We see we see this, So I mean, a big part of the theme of the Quran is, it's the two paths: being appreciative or unappreciative. Those who are grateful, those who turn ungrateful. So it's I mean, you can see the evidence for that all around us. People complaining when things are good, or people complaining when things are bad, and it's important, to seek refuge in God from the sneaky whispers, and from the people, and from anywhere else that would try to influence, the way we think. Because I mean, there's a lot of people like you could work with or something that are just complainers, and it's it could be our job to maybe remind them or set the example as to not complain, and so these people would be helped, or they would reflect, But for each congregation, we have decreed a set of rights that they must uphold. Therefore, they should not dispute with you. You shall continue to invite everyone to your Lord. Most assuredly, you're on the right path. So, congregations from the past, there's been rights that are given to them that they must uphold. Things, therefore they shouldn't, so people from my understanding, people like from the past might have had different rights decreed for them. I mean, people at the time of Moses, or around the time when the Torah was around, they had certain rights that were decreed for them, and that they must uphold these rights, like the Sabbath and all that. Therefore, they shouldn't dispute with you. But we see here, you shall continue to invite everyone to your Lord. So the message is one and the same: God alone. And now that we have the Quran, this is the message that and the revelation that supersedes all previous messages. So once somebody is introduced to the final testament, it is now in the ball's in their court, if you want to think of it like that. That they are now have the best. I mean, literally the best. The Quran entails all the previous messages. It's the greatest revelation that has come to the world, and it's the final revelation. So they should, if they were guided, they should readily accept it, and be happy with the Quran, and not need to refer to previous scriptures, or stuff that could have been adulterated with nonsense, as a source of religious guidance. They accept the Quran happily. And verse 68: If they argue with you, then say, God is fully aware of everything you do. God will judge among you on the day of resurrection regarding all your disputes. So this is something that I'm sure we've all experienced, people, if we're going to debate with somebody, or just even not even couldn't even be a debate. It could just be you're just inviting somebody, or or I don't know, you could share something and somebody comments or posts or whatever, and they start arguing with you, or trying to dispute the message. Um, the belief, we should rest assured that God is seer of all this, and everything is going to be judged accordingly, between these disputes on the day of resurrection. So it's something that only God can do. Because if you think about, I mean, every interaction that I've had, let's say with somebody, inviting them to the message, or or any of y'all, or any listening that has had, all of that, everything is going to be accounted for. There's nothing that's going to be left out. So I mean, because we see here that God will judge among every, regarding all of your disputes. So I mean, the disputes of believers and non-believers, the disputes of the disbelievers against, I mean, you have muftis and sheiks and pastors are all pointing the finger at each other, like the Baptists and the Catholics and different evangelicals and the Jehovah's Witnesses, and all. I mean, all these people are the Sufis and the Sunnis, and they all somehow think that they have the truth, and like they're all bashing each other, right? And they're all fighting among each other, and it's really baffling and amazing to me. We're going to see all of this. God's going to judge among every single dispute. So I mean, any dispute we've ever had, it could have been with our parents, or it could have been with a relative, or it could have just been with someone you don't, someone that you met online or something that argued. God is going to be the judge over that. So I mean, that's. It reminds me of, I think it's in the verse. It's towards the end of Surah 6, and it says, just it's something along the lines. It says, "Just wait, we are waiting too," or "Keep on waiting, we are waiting too." So I mean, this is what you can tell these people, that God is going to be the judge over our disputes. So to use your religion to me is my religion. So there's nothing we should try to, or there's nothing we should worry about. God is fully aware of everything, everything that's being said in every single interaction. So I mean, it really, it also, for me, it um, just reminds me to be extra careful with the way message and information is presented to people. Even the truth, because the better we can present information, the better we can invite people with wisdom and enlightenment. Um, maybe the better chance, more credit, or the better chance they could have of taking heed. But at the end of the day, whether it's done in a good manner, or just a so-so manner, or whatever, it's up to God whether these people believe or not. So, and this is easy for God to do. God can judge among every single human being that's ever lived. Probably, maybe even the jinns. They have their own disputes among each other. I was just listening to a study from Surah 72 the other day about, it says they among us are the submitters, and among us they're compromisers. So I mean, I'm sure they have their own disputes. And I mean, God can judge over all of that without the least effort. You know. So, verse 70: Do you not realize that God knows everything in the heavens and everything on earth? All this is recorded in a record. This is easy for God to do. Yet they idolize beside God idols wherein He placed no power, and they know nothing about them. The transgressors have no helpers. So yeah, this is it also reminds me of the verse that says that the resurrect, or it goes along, it's along the lines where it says, the resurrection of a single human or all the humans is one and the same. Like it's whether God resurrects a single human, or brings back to life every single human, it's the same for Him. It doesn't even, there's no, it doesn't, it's the easiest thing for Him to do. So it's the same here. The record record that everything, and this includes, as we said in the previous verse, all these disputes, so every single dispute that I've had, that you've had, all of that, like we're going to see that on the day of resurrection. We're going to be judged among that, so these people that try to argue with God's proof and God's revelation, they're going to be shamefaced, so and might be greater in number seemingly, but they're actually not, because I mean God's soldiers are they're all around us, and they're way more powerful, and they're not only more powerful, so much more powerful, they outnumber too, because the amount of angels, they don't even know, subhanallah, they don't even know their own number. Only God knows that. So who's really weaker in power. So but it's just, this part of the system and the test that's set up, for people who are actually going to persevere and strive, and even even when things could look faint or grim, as we were given examples through the Quran, like they face an army that's bigger than them and more numerous, and let's say, I don't know, could have better weapons or something, but the believers are not gonna turn away, and they're gonna push on. They're not gonna compromise or cower, because God doesn't want those people. I mean, we wouldn't want those people if you had a company, or if you had your own. You wouldn't want those people with you either. So, why should people think that God's system is any different? So, um, and we can see just the fallacy of idol worship, and this is Satan's point of view, and this is his message, that his system, or not his system, it's his scheme, and it's his, to promote his point of view to people, and it has to be this way, because if it's not, if the devil wasn't allowed to interfere with the messengers or the prophets' wishes, or it wasn't allowed to, if I mean it's if these things weren't allowed as a test, and I mean, how are you going to know who's who? It's like it's not entrapment either. I mean, that's not even that's like a human term that to describe something that's a little different, but it's it. I mean, if you have 10 people in a room, and you need to know who are the honest ones and who are the evil ones. I mean, you set a cookie jar, and you'll see, and you leave the room, you're going to see who put their hand in the cookie jar and who's a thief, right? And because I mean, how else are you going to distinguish? And then it's also not just for people to know. I mean, it's for, so let's say 7 out of those 10 steal from it. I mean, now boom, they're exposed, and it's not just they also themselves have to see they're being exposed. So that way, I mean, it's shown to them on the day of judgment, what was in their hearts. And it's also set up for everyone else to see. I mean, even the 3 people who didn't steal and aren't, thieves, they're also shown that these people were bad themselves. So this is because it's not just like everyone, because it's like if the verse says, if God willed, everyone would have been could have believed. But do you want to force the people to believe? Do you want to force the people to worship God alone, or do you want to actually just let them be and see how they really are, whether they're obsessed with other human beings, which is, frankly, it's just quite weird, and it's just silly, to go to be that up in arms over a fleshly body and a soul. That's what comprises the body and the soul, the human. I mean, it's just absurd, But this is we have to seek refuge in God from Satan constantly, that we don't fall victim. And because I mean, if we miss, and it's important to, I mean, I'm sure we know, but as it's been discussed before, but the obvious idols, like if Satan won't get us on Muhammad or Jesus or Mary or Saint Joseph or whoever, there's so many other idols to pick from that he'll use in his arsenal. That whether it's money, it's a job, it's your wife, it's your kid, I mean, any material things. So this is what it means to be steadfast, and not make these things our God, and which is the whole essence of our existence in taking this test. So, verse 72, violence and belligerence, signs of disbelief. When our revelations are recited to them clearly, you recognize wickedness on the faces of those who disbelieve. They almost attack those who recite our revelations to them. Say, shall I inform you of something much, much worse? Hell is promised by God for those who disbelieve. What a miserable destiny. So, yeah, this is an obvious telltale sign of a disbeliever because they get very aggressive and just extremely, um, they, have an extreme amount of opposition towards if you just tell them God alone, or if you just have something posted on the wall, it could be a masjid. I mean, as we see the case, example with the messenger, they get really upset over it. Like they start crying or they start whining, complaining, and I mean, or they get belligerent. You know, you tell them God alone, and they wanna attack you, or they want to do this or do that. And I mean, like, how can you go wrong with God alone? This is how deceived these people are. This is how I guess the level of disease that's in these people's hearts and in their souls, because they almost attack those who recite our revelations to them. And I mean, you're literally inviting them to be forgiven. You're inviting them to the right path. You're inviting them to, you know, and then they sit here and it's like it's almost unbelievable. Like it's unfathomable how um, they're invited to be forgiven and lead a happy life, and they're shown happiness and submission to God, God alone, and then they get upset, And so, I mean, a good response, as we see in the Quran, basically tell them something is much worse is waiting for you. Hell is promised by God for those who disbelieve. It's a miserable destiny. So, I mean, this is, and then, but they would, if they had any sense, they would turn reverent and maybe even think about, okay, hell, like, do I want to go there? No, but they don't. They don't. And I mean, we also know the violence and belligerence. I mean, this is even related to unreligious matters, like people who automatically are the ignorant ones, and that in almost all cases that, let's say, have no argument because their argument is nullified. It could just be about non-religious matters, but this just parallels into the accuracy of, like, violence and belligerence. The people who are always in the wrong, they get very emotional. They get very belligerent because they know they're defeated in whatever logical dispute or argument that you presented to them. And so they have nothing left. So they have to resort to some type of outlandish behavior. So I mean, it's the same thing with religious affairs, and believing in God alone, and belief and disbelief. So I mean, you can. This is a good way of setting this. So we have 5 more verses left, inshallah. Can they fly? Can they create a fly? O people, here is a parable that you must ponder carefully. The idols you set up beside God can never create e- can never create a fly, even if they banded together to do so. Furthermore, if the fly steals anything from them, they cannot recover it. Weak is the pursuer and the pursued. They do not value God as he should be valued. God is the most powerful, the Almighty. So this is a parable that I mean, I've even used before, just like telling somebody about the message, or just kind of making a point, to maybe let them think. And I mean, sometimes they do, but I mean, right here we have profound wisdom. I mean, the whole Quran is full of wisdom. And if you look, no human being can even create a fly. Like, much, I mean, something that's so small and so intelligent. I mean, we don't even have helicopters. Like, I mean, we have 100 million. I don't know. I mean, a fighter jets will cost in the billions, but I mean, we have, let's just say for practical purposes of the example, we have multi-billion-dollar pieces of machinery that can only go in one direction, and in order to move backwards or side to side, it has to like slow down. It takes maybe several seconds, and then it's not as aerodynamic, it's not as quick. I mean, if you look at a fly, and it's much easier to do something on the on a large scale, and they still can't achieve that. When you get down to making things smaller, it becomes even more complex. And I mean, we can see, so we can appreciate just the design of a fly, and its intelligence. And I mean, if it knows if you're going to swat at it, it's going to calculate your movements. And then also, I mean, the fly, I remember seeing something, I think the amount of eyes or the corneas or the cones, I forget which one, but it's the amount of the eyes, like the eye receptacles or whatever the term is. I think it's like maybe 400 or 4,000. I mean, it's perfectly designed, and so. Even if they banded together, so I mean, even if all the humans or the jinns tried to create something, they couldn't. I mean, if they could, they would have. I mean, or maybe not, but we don't see anything like that. And that's just a fly. We're not even asking them to create something even more complex, like a hawk or something, or a bird. But furthermore, if a fly steals anything from them, they can't recover it. Weak is the pursuer and the pursued. So I think like a year or two ago, I found out, like, so in the past, I used to think, okay, like if you've tried to catch, like if a fly flies off, it's so small and it's so quick, it'll get away from you. And if it decides to keep flying away, there's no way anybody can catch it. I mean, like, unless the only way people have gotten flies if it stays in the room and you eventually get it. But there's so actually the way the fly works, if they steal, like, so when they, if they come and let's say take a little piece of a sugar cube or something, once it, the way it digests that that food or that substance, it happens almost instantaneously, where just the whole structure, like chemical structure of whatever they just ingested, changes instantly, um, based off their enzymes and stuff. So if they take a cube or a little piece of sugar from you or something, instantly, there's no way you could ever get that back, because I don't want to bore you with the details, but just from what I remember, it almost instantaneously, as soon as it enters in the fly, it changes, and it's dissolved and is digested into something completely different. And so even if you caught the fly and you were to extract the fly or something, you wouldn't be able to get the sugar back, because it's not there anymore. It's completely chemically changed. I mean, so subhanallah, and this is, I mean, as it says, weak is the pursuer and the pursued. So should increase our reverence and appreciation for God. They do not value God as He should be valued. God is the most powerful, the Almighty, and this is just a fly. So I mean, think about like galaxies or nebulas or black holes, and I mean just these phenomenons. I mean and that's just in the innermost universe. I mean, what's a fly compared to that? And I mean, we can look at how amazingly complex and interesting and intricate a fly is. And I mean, even parts of the fly, you could just look at the eyes or the wings and the way they're designed, and that's not even the fly itself. So it's just God gives us so many proofs and examples and signs in the heavens and the earth for the human being to look upon and appreciate. And as we seen, we talked about today, the human being is, most humans are unappreciative, and they don't value God as He should be valued, because they don't understand or know God as He should. Wrapping up, God chooses from among the angels, messengers, as well as among the people. God is your seer. He knows their past and their future. To God belongs the ultimate control of all matters. O you who believe, you shall bow, prostrate, worship your Lord, and work righteousness that you may succeed. So yeah, this is constitutes like our belief as a submitter is prostrating, bowing, working righteousness, and worshiping God. And this is the successful path. This is the path to redemption and understanding too. Verse 76 that God is running everything. This is what it means that God is doing everything. To God belongs the ultimate control of all matters. So, the matter of our heartbeat, the matter of a cat walking across the street, the matter of a truck and its tires spinning on the road, like these are all matters. And it says to God belongs the ultimate control over all of these. So when you think about it, when I think about it like this, like even me going to itch myself or scratch myself, if I have a scratch, I need to itch my shoulder or something. I mean, that's part of that's all under control of our Creator. So this should make us appreciative for all of this. I'm gonna end here, and God willing, if there's any questions or comments, please feel free.
Mashallah, thank you.
Mashallah, brother. Thank you so much.
So I think there was a comment earlier where we were talking about the retribution of a terrible day, right? I think you mentioned that we could talk about it later.
Yeah, yes.
So
I had a question on that.
yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
No, it was just yeah. So the comment or the when I was reading, because when it says the hour will come to them suddenly,
Mm-hmm.
or the retribution of a terrible day, but I guess
Mm-hmm.
my understanding was the hour, like the hour, day of judgment,
Mm-hmm.
day of resurrection, and it says or the retribution of a terrible day.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, is that referring? Because I mean that would be the retribution of the day of judgment would be retribution of a terrible day for the disbelievers, or is it referring to the retribution of like let's say the day that Pharaoh got wiped out, or
Mm-hmm.
the day of a disbeliever that's really
Yeah.
transgressed, the day he dies or something, or God, uh,
Mm-hmm.
annihilates him or
Yeah.
communicates.
So I think that, like, when how the messenger of the covenant explained it, about the four types of disaster, and he said this, the last one is a retributive disaster, which ends up in their death. Well, death itself is not a disaster, but retribution is the final part where the person does not have any hope for a return point of as a point of no return. The person's going to be annihilated, like, so like say somebody like gets wiped out by, you see all these communities and stuff like that, like for example the people who get the retribution on the smoke, on the day of the smoke, right? Or someone else gets some other kinds of retribution where it ends up in his death basically, right? So it could be referring to that, right? The retribution of a terrible day. I mean, and that when that happens, the person doesn't have a chance to go back and fix things, right? Asha, I also wanted to comment on the hypocrites dropping out in the God system. So I think that's something we talked about before, and I think the hypocrites, is a subject that is talked about constantly in the Quran, and we see that it's talking about the system that God says, God sends a messenger, and with the messenger comes with a message very clear and easy to understand. But then, devil, he tries to interfere in his wishes, and I see like, I see why it's referring to hypocrites here, because the hypocrites will be the ones who will misrepresent that message, will misrepresent the truth, will misrepresent what the wish of the messenger is, he'll misrepresent the position of the messenger as well, and the message. And they think that they're deceiving the believers, and they think they're deceiving God by changing this message, but they're only deceiving themselves. And as a result, they're they're standing up for a slightly well, it's not slightly, but I mean, it looks like it is like a slightly different message, because they try to bend the truth, to a point where it looks like it's from the messenger or from God, but it's really not. And they're basically opposing the messenger, they're opposing the message, and they're doing it in a way, in a very sort of a sneaky way, where they think that no one can really pick up on what they're doing. But God says that He sets up this scheming of the devil as a way to test those who harbor doubts in their hearts. And so, like, this becomes a test for these people, it also becomes a test for others. And basically, the people who are wicked, are this is like a litmus test. And the people who are wicked, they end up latching on to that message, or that belief, and they end up basically dropping out. And it's interesting, like, how it talks about the dropping out, right? Like, a person dropping out is not someone uh that be dropping. I mean, someone who drops out is like, like, for example, people go to school and then some people drop out. um so they, because they fail a certain criteria, and then they're dropped out. But then also, like,
They got a
if something,
chance.
yeah.
They got a chance.
And it's also something that kind of happens automatically, right? I mean, it's not even something that you always have to, like, actively do something to, like, disqualify them. It's like they disqualify themselves pretty much by themselves. And then some of them even leave on their own from the believers. This is like the dropping out. Like, for example, it reminds me of, not that it's prohibited or anything, but it reminds me of a Quran study where the Messenger of the Covenant talked about some hypocrites, and he said, they were coming, and he said he didn't kick them out. They decided to stop coming or leave on their own, because it's God's principle that, I mean, the masjids will be frequented by the people who believe, by the believers. And these people will naturally, decide not to be part of it at some point, when they see a group of believers who are strong in their belief. I mean, they will, that they're not surrounded by hypocrites, the hypocrites will leave, basically. And the other thing we see uh, in this is, as for those who disbelieve, they will continue to harbor doubts until the hour comes to them suddenly. Those It says, those who are blessed with knowledge will recognize the truth from your Lord, then believe in it. So the believers, when this happens, the believers will immediately recognize the truth, whereas the disbelievers, it's like the honey trap, right? The for the fruit flies, they will go for it. I mean, it's something maybe fancy or something sounding nice to them or something, and they'll get attracted. The hypocrites will get attracted towards it. And but the believers, they will be blessed by God, to be guided by God to see the truth as it is, and they will not fall for it, and their hearts will accept the truth readily. And that's why God says that He guides the believer in the right path. And so the hypocrites are, people who inside their hearts, like, they have doubts, and so God says they'll continue to harbor doubts inside. Harboring, I mean, if you think about harboring, like, harboring a lot of times kind of also happens in, like, secretly. People are harboring, like, someone harboring a terrorist, they're not openly usually, like, hiding these people, right? They're, like, secretively hiding them. And so God says that they'll continue to harbor doubts until the hour comes. So these people, they say they believe in the day of judgment, and they believe in God's omnipotence and stuff, but inside their hearts, deep inside their hearts, they have doubts. And because of these doubts, they eventually they're not able to overcome these doubts, and these doubts overtake them, and they become hypocrites. So it's very important for us, to uh, always reassure ourselves, even every time, like if we have any kinds of these doubts, like we question ourselves, like why do we have these doubts, like why do we think that something, like for example, if a doubt comes in our hearts about like resurrection, so we can debate in our head with ourselves or our jinn, like why do we think that God cannot do this, like what one reason why it's not possible or something like that, um to make sure that those doubts don't happen. And I think the more we worship God, the more we praise God, and the more our soul grows, the more certainty we're going to get also from that as well. God is going to strengthen us, and God is going to guide us.
Yeah, brother, mashallah. So, when someone is very new to submission, at that moment, it is like very normal to have some doubts.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to make that clear, because the messenger is also talking about it. The important thing is that, after receiving so many information and so many proofs of all the message that comes from God, at a point, you shouldn't have any doubts anymore. Because in the Quran, God says that, right, to the believers, that there are no doubts in their hearts in anything that God sent, like in any message, they just believe in it, right? They say we hear and we obey. Like if you say I hear and I obey, that means like you don't have any doubt about the message. You just immediately believe in it. But it's very normal for new submitters that when they come to submission, that they have some small doubts about the information because they need to, um, they need to understand a little bit the message.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes not very easy to handle so many new information because a lot of people, they hear a lot of stories and a lot of misinformation all their lives, and then when you come to submission and you can clearly see that almost everything that they taught you is a lie, and I was very shocked when I heard for the first time in the interview where the messenger of the covenant said, like the Muslims of today, they don't do anything according to the Quran. Like the shahada is wrong, the salat is wrong, zakat is wrong, hajj is wrong. Everything is just wrong. So it's a little bit. It can be a little bit difficult for new submitters to grasp the information, but if someone is destined to heaven, then God will help, of course, and then make sure that the doubts will go.
Mm-hmm.
Mashallah.
Yeah, mashallah, that's great. Also, I think like having doubts, is something that we should be able to overcome. Like when we become submitters, especially the submitters, right? Because we have the Quran's mathematical code, and it's there to remove all traces of doubt. So if there are newcomers, they're new to the message, and then they have doubts. Like they should really make sure that they go through the Quran's mathematical miracle, because that is the function of the Quran's mathematical miracle, to strengthen the faith of the faithful, to convince the Jews and the Christians, to disturb the disbelievers, and to remove all traces of doubts, right, from the hearts of Jews, Christians, as well as the believers. So its function is to remove all traces of doubts, right? So if you really spend time to read the mathematical miracle as a new submitter, I mean, specifically, so you should be able to remove it, should be able to remove all traces of doubts, because what happens is, as you go through these numbers, you realize, okay, the probability of something like this being a coincidence or anything like that, it just ends up being nilled very quickly. So those doubts should not exist, right? And the thing is, like, also we remember that, as when the messenger is talking about the doubts, with the people who are trying to put doubts, it's very important, and why we stress about not being with the hypocrites, not befriending the hypocrites, is that he says that, these people will try to divert you, you know, and as long as you even have, one doubt inside your heart, I mean, he says you're in the lowest ranks, so we should have absolutely no doubts whatsoever. And when we're talking about doubts, like, we're not talking about like, the color of Moses' beard or anything like that. I mean, we're talking about doubts about resurrection, doubts about the day of judgment, like these fundamental beliefs, doubts about God's omnipotence. So we should have like strong certainty, maybe if you think that maybe there's you know, um, you're not gonna make it, right? And so even like the smallest doubts, they could be whatever kind of doubts there are. Like, I think as submitters, we should try to not hide them or not thing, but we should talk about them, so we can overcome those doubts. Sometimes, for example, like if I have a doubt about, a certain thing that the messenger has explained, right? And you know if I go around befriending hypocrite, then the hypocrite will say, well, this was the messenger, this was Rashad Khalifa's personal opinion, and now you have a doubt about the messenger, something that the messenger has brought from God. Now you have doubt about the message, right? And this is definitely something that we see prevalent among the people that also identify themselves as submitters, that they openly spread these ideas, so now if you're entertaining that doubt, you should try to overcome that doubt, right? I mean, you should try to talk about it, overcome it. But if you start entertaining that doubt, you start harboring it, and it's going to grow and grow, and basically it's not going to be good for you. So that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, mashallah, brother. So, what you mentioned, like asking questions is definitely very important because, like, what I saw in some of my close friends who became like submitters, I could clearly see why they actually also had doubts. Like, one of the most important thing is that when you come to submission and you decide to believe in this, it's very important to read first of all the Quran, right? And then besides the Quran, of course, watch all the videos and the voice recordings of the Messenger of the Covenant. Of course, the Quran studies that we are doing, these are extremely helpful. But from some of the people, you know, the thing is that if you really care about the message and if you really care about the truth, then you will decide to make sure that you take the information as soon as possible. Like, of course, we can't expect it from everyone, right? Not everyone is like when they come to submission that they really go towards this information like, oh, this is amazing, I need to know everything about it. There are a lot of people who come and then they take their time, and then after 1 or 2 years still they have these basic information that they need to know already, like after 1 or 2 years they don't have it. So this shows that um, you should care about this, right? You should care about the information. And if you truly care, then the first thing you would do is to try to get that right information. And most of the times, the people who have doubts, let's say, and they are really sincere people, this doubt goes away after learning as much as possible about the information that is given to us by God through His messengers, of course.
Yeah, mashallah. Yeah, it's very, very, very true. The messenger said we have to work on our doubts, and that's a good way of putting it, brother Jaffer. Because right, if somebody was really sincere about like saving their soul and realize what's at stake, and it's exactly as you said, they're gonna kind of go above and beyond trying to get as much information, and they're gonna go above and beyond like working on their doubts too. And as Suleiman said earlier, the mathematical miracle is so true. and we have it right here in the Quran. One of um, the functions of it is to disturb disbelievers and strengthen the faith of the faithful, and to remove all traces of doubt, uh, from the believers. And so that, I mean, just personally, that was like the thing about the age of 40, and then the messenger was like the last two things I was coming to trying to understand. And I was like, really, as you mentioned, I was like watching a lot of videos on the math and stuff and the messenger, and I was diligently reading the Quran, and then I came across a few things that were like overwhelming. Like, there's no way you could even argue with it, or not that you'd want to, but there's no way this is coincidence. And that was like literally the solidifying factor. And I mean, subhanAllah, we see that right there, to remove all traces of doubts. So, and traces of doubts are even bad, because I mean, as like, even having a little bit of doubt is not good. You're in the lowest of the submitters rank. Because I think the issue with even having a trace, like even a trait, because a trace means like just a trace of, like, it's very small, maybe even undetectable unless you really look at it. That's super important. Why we have to examine, and exactly, again, as it was discussed a minute ago by the brother about how the hypocrites are so bad, because they put these doubts in people. They try to spread doubt about the messenger, or this and that, and just one little thing they could say could be like the poison or something, but that could instill a trace of doubt. But I mean, that's where God will help us. He'll help, and this is why these people are so wicked and evil. The most evil, the people, because they're literally people that are trying to be saved and redeemed. And you have hypocrites, or so-called submitters. I mean, just different monsters. Just from what I've heard, and kind of from what I've seen, it's like they're the most wicked of the wicked, because there's people that are going there, that may go there, they're trying to see God alone, accept everything, and then you have people, they're bad mouthing the messenger, or they're undermining the message, which is super really satanic. And you can see why these people get the lowest pit of hell. I didn't really understand, like, okay, why don't, like, a rapist or a murderer or somebody, I mean, they get their share, but why these people? Because they're the worst of the worst. They've come so close to the message. And then there's people that are like genuinely like want to be saved and redeemed, and they're sitting here poisoning doubts, trying to undermine the message, or this and that, and or speak bad about the messenger, and stuff. And so that hurts. That can really hurt somebody who's trying to seek the path. But we know that God is doing everything, and that so these people will be exposed, and they belong with each other. So it's like, let them have all their little doubt parties and stuff. Like,
Dog
have their
parties.
doubts among themselves.
House party.
That's a good one.
I like that.
Yeah, I really like it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then we will have like
Mashallah.
certainty parties. That's what we will have, inshallah.
Yeah, mashallah. Yeah.
Mm.
SubhanAllah, thank God for the miracle. Alhamdulillah.
Right. Are there any other questions related to the verses that we read, or if not, any maybe even off-topic questions? Well, I also wanted to comment on the fly, mashallah, brother John. You explained pretty well about the fly. Like, and it's amazing, like how the instincts are, like how the brain of the fly is so fast. Like for a fly, like everything that we do like appears to be in slow motion because its nervous system is working like so many times faster than us. You know, they see us in slow motion. That's why we can never catch them, because their instincts are so um, fast. And then they digest, dilute the material with stuff and decompose it and everything, as you said. So we cannot catch anything that they've already taken. And then also, I mean, when they're flying, like, it's crazy, right? So but yeah, also I think the verses about the violence and belligerence that are signs of disbelief, I think it's definitely interesting that when you see the people attack the truth, like, you're this is a sign for the, like it says, signs of disbelief. So these are signs for people to see the disbelief, whether the disbelief is coming from a hypocrite or a disbeliever or an idol worshiper, like, and God says, like, at that point, like, you don't cater to their you're not trying to please them. So God says, say, shall I inform you of something much worse? Hell is promised by God for those who disbelieve. So, like, imagine someone in that state of mind where they're attacking a person who's telling them God's revelation, just basically saying what God says. And they say they almost attack them. So they don't actually attack them, but they may almost attack them. And then God says, shall I inform you of something much worse? Hell is promised by God for those who disbelieve. What a miserable destiny. So, it's like almost these people are inside their, like, will die in their age. Basically, Quran is telling them, if we're telling them or not, but Quran is telling them this, that, hell is promised for the disbelievers. And so, like, uh, we discussed earlier, I mean, it's so important for us to make sure that now that we're in submission, that we're following it properly to the T, and understanding it, doing our due diligence, because we don't have any other options. Like, you're either going to be in the highest of heaven, given the fact that you're so fortunate to have the right information, and to be in submission at a time where it's not the easiest thing to do, and you're basically uh, cast out, and persecuted, at this time. But if you disbelieve at the same time, you're the lowliest of the lowly. And as John mentioned about coming so close, so we really have something that we have to take very, very seriously. Something that people tend to forget is, now that we're submitters, I mean, we really don't have, like, we can't go back to our previous lives, or backtrack in any way in our submission. I mean, we have to move forward in a way that we should be more certain about everything, and we should be getting closer to God and not moving backwards or standing still.
Yeah, mashallah.
Inshallah,
Real
brother.
good comment about the standing still. Oh, I'm sorry, brother Jaffer. I just wanted to say, yeah, going backwards is definitely bad, but standing still too is like there's that old saying, idle hands make for the devil's playground. Like, so you always want to be moving forward. You know. I'm sorry, brother Jaffer. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say, inshallah, brother.
Inshallah.
So, and then God is encouraging us to strive in the cause of God in verses 58 and 59. People who immigrate for the sake of God and strive for the sake of God. Mashallah. So, and this is God's promise for all the
Yeah,
believers.
yeah. And when the messenger speaks about the zikr that we are doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
He says the more you say it, the more you mean it. Like, the more we strive in the cause of God, the more it will help us to mean, and then
Mm-hmm.
um, Yeah, so that's probably the way actually of making sure that we're really certain about our goals and the things that we believe in.
Mm-hmm. Inshallah. So, if there are no other comments, any off-topic comments, even so, then God willing, we can conclude our study. So, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Brother John, for leading the study. God willing, our next English Quran study is going to be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum.